The soldier who refused to believe the war had ended. A true story. For nearly 30 years, the world believed one man was dead. Governments changed. Cities were rebuilt. Children who had not yet been born when World War II ended became adults with families of their own. The 20th century kept moving forward. But on one small island in the Philippines, time stopped. A dense jungle. Morning mist hangs between towering trees. Rainwater drips slowly from broad green leaves. The only sounds are insects. And footsteps. Slow. Measured. Disciplined. A figure appears through the foliage. His uniform is faded by decades of tropical sun. His boots have been repaired so many times they barely resemble military footwear. An old rifle rests across his shoulder. Every movement is deliberate. Every step is cautious. He pauses. Listens. Then continues walking. To anyone watching, he looks like a soldier from another century. Because in many ways, he is. Narrator. March 1974. Nearly 29 years after the end of World War II, a Japanese soldier emerged from the jungle of Lubang Island. He carried his rifle. He wore his military uniform. And he believed the war was still being fought. Newspapers around the world would soon publish his photograph. People stared at the image in disbelief. How could this happen? How could one man remain hidden for almost 3 decades? Without accepting that the war had ended? Had he never seen an airplane? Had no one tried to find him? Did he never hear the news? Or had something else kept him in the jungle? The answers were far more complicated than anyone imagined. Black and white newspaper headlines spinning across the screen. Japanese soldier found after 29 years. War holdout emerges from Philippine jungle. Officer refuses to believe war ended. Each headline raises more questions than it answers. Narrator. History remembers Hiroo Onoda as the soldier who never surrendered. But history rarely tells you why. This isn't simply a story about war. It's a story about duty, identity, isolation, and a promise that became stronger than reality itself. A modern map of the Philippines. The camera slowly moves toward a small island southwest of Manila. Lubang Island. Today, it appears peaceful. Fishing boats move gently along the coastline. Children play near the shore. Birds cross the sky. Nothing about the island suggests it once became the stage for one of history's most extraordinary true stories. Yet somewhere beyond those beaches, hidden beneath mountains and thick forest, one man spent almost 30 years believing he was still a soldier on an active mission. Not because he had forgotten, but because he believed everyone else was lying. Music builds slightly. Before we return to the beginning, we have to answer one question. What could possibly convince someone that every newspaper, every radio broadcast, every leaflet dropped from airplanes, and every voice calling for peace was part of an elaborate deception? The answer begins with a single order. An order given during the final months of World War II. An order that Hiroo Onoda believed could never be broken. December 1944. Imperial Japanese Army Intelligence School. Winter had settled across Japan. Snow covered the rooftops. Factory chimneys poured smoke into the gray morning sky. Across the country, the war was turning against Japan. American forces were advancing across the Pacific. Island after island was falling. Military commanders knew something that ordinary citizens did not. Japan was running out of time. Yet inside one military intelligence school, the lessons continued as though victory was still possible. Young officers sat quietly behind wooden desks. Maps covered the classroom walls. Every word spoken inside that room could determine whether a mission succeeded or ended in disaster. Among those officers sat a quiet 22-year-old intelligence trainee. His name was Hiroo Onoda. Unlike many soldiers of his generation, Onoda wasn't trained for large battlefield attacks. He was trained for something far more dangerous: military intelligence. His instructors taught him how to survive behind enemy lines, how to gather information without being seen, how to move silently through forests, how to live off the land, how to avoid capture. Every lesson had one purpose: stay alive. Keep gathering information. Never abandon the mission. Unlike ordinary infantry soldiers, intelligence officers were expected to think independently. But they were also expected to obey one principle above all others: complete the mission until officially relieved. Those words would shape the rest of Hiroo Onoda's life. By late 1944, Japan's military position had become increasingly difficult. Across the Pacific, Allied forces were capturing strategic islands one after another. Air raids reached Japanese cities. Supply routes were shrinking. Every remaining position became more valuable. One of those positions was a small island in the Philippines. Its name was Lubang Island. It wasn't famous. It wasn't large. But its location made it strategically important. Military leaders believed enemy forces would eventually land there. Their orders were simple: delay the invasion for as long as possible. Destroy supplies if necessary. Gather intelligence whenever possible. Never surrender voluntarily. One December afternoon, Onoda received his assignment. Before leaving, he met his commanding officer for what would become the most important conversation of his life. Historical accounts describe that Onoda received clear instructions about his mission before departing for Lubang Island. He later recalled being told that no matter how long it took, he was expected to continue carrying out his duties until superior officers returned. Whether it took months or years, he believed his responsibility would remain the same. Those instructions became more than military orders. They became a promise. And promises made in wartime can become difficult to abandon. Within days, Onoda boarded a military transport bound for the Philippines. The ship moved quietly across dangerous waters. Above them, Allied aircraft patrolled the skies. Below them, enemy submarines hunted supply ships. Every mile carried him farther from home, farther from certainty, farther from the life he had always known. He had no way of knowing that he was sailing toward a mission unlike any other, one that historians would still be discussing decades later, one that would test not only his training, but his understanding of reality itself. As the coastline of Lubang slowly appeared on the horizon, Hiroo Onoda stood silently on the deck. To him, this was simply another military assignment. He believed he would complete his mission, receive new orders, and one day return home. He could not possibly imagine that the next time the world would truly hear his name, nearly 30 years would have passed. January 1945. The transport ship eased toward the shoreline before sunrise. The sea was calm. The sky was still dark. Ahead lay Lubang Island. From a distance, it looked almost untouched. Palm trees swayed gently in the breeze. Small villages lined the coast. Smoke rose from cooking fires. It was hard to imagine that this peaceful island would soon become another battlefield in the largest war the world had ever known. For Second Lieutenant Hiroo Onoda, this was not an adventure. It was an assignment. He stepped onto the beach carrying little more than his rifle, ammunition, a field pack, and the orders he had been entrusted to carry out. Those orders were simple in principle, but difficult in practice. If enemy forces landed, he was to gather intelligence, disrupt their operations whenever possible, protect military resources from falling into enemy hands, and above all, he was not to surrender on his own initiative. The mission would end only when a superior officer officially relieved him. Onoda accepted those instructions without hesitation. Like many officers trained in military intelligence, he believed discipline was the foundation of survival. Failure was not an option. Questioning orders was unthinkable. A mission already falling apart. But even before Onoda had a chance to organize his work, events were moving faster than anyone expected. American forces were advancing across the Philippines. Japanese supply lines were collapsing. Communications between isolated islands became increasingly unreliable. Military units that had expected reinforcements found themselves cut off. Lubang Island was no exception. The Japanese garrison stationed there had its own commanders, its own priorities, and its own struggles. Historical accounts indicate that some local officers were skeptical of Onoda's intelligence mission. Rather than carrying out sabotage plans, they focused on preparing for a direct defense of the island. It created tension from the beginning. The young intelligence officer arrived with specialized training and clear instructions. But the battlefield rarely follows written plans. On February 28, 1945, American and Filipino forces landed on Lubang Island. The fighting was brief but intense. The Japanese defenders were outnumbered and outgunned. Many were killed. Others surrendered. Some attempted to escape into the mountains. Amid the confusion, Onoda disappeared into the jungle with a small group of surviving soldiers. For them, the mission had changed overnight. There would be no organized headquarters. No regular supplies. No reliable communication with Japan. Only dense forest, steep mountains, and uncertainty. Yet Onoda believed his orders still stood. Until someone officially told him otherwise. The mission continued. The jungle swallowed them. Towering trees blocked the sunlight. Thick vines tangled every path. Heavy rain turned the ground into mud. Food became difficult to find. Every sound demanded attention. A snapping branch. A distant voice. An airplane overhead. Friend and enemy were often impossible to distinguish. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Still, Onoda waited for the moment when Japanese forces would return. He believed reinforcements were coming. He believed the war could still be won. He believed his commanders had not forgotten him. He had no way of knowing that history had already taken a different course.